Commander Hana Kim wiped the dust from her helmet visor as she stepped out of the landing shuttle. The moon's surface stretched before her like a field of broken glass, sharp crystals jutting up from the gray ground in strange patterns. She had been leading space archaeological teams for 8 years, but this place felt different. Ancient. Sad. "Commander, the energy readings are stronger near those tall structures," called Dr. Minho Park through the radio. He was pointing toward a group of blue crystal towers that rose like frozen flames against the black sky. Hana walked carefully across the uneven ground. Each step made small crystal fragments crunch under her boots. The towers were beautiful, but somehow lonely, standing in perfect silence under the distant stars. Her scanner beeped steadily as she got closer. "These crystals are not natural," said Dr. Gina Lee, kneeling beside one of the smaller formations. She was the team's language expert, always excited about finding new ways different species communicated. "Look at these patterns carved into the surface. They are too organized, too purposeful." Hana ran her gloved hand over the smooth crystal surface. The patterns were indeed carved with incredible precision, forming complex designs that seemed to flow like writing. As her scanner passed over them, numbers appeared on the small screen. Thousands and thousands of data files were stored inside these crystals. "My God," whispered Minho. "It is like a massive computer made of crystal. But who built it? And why leave it here on this dead moon?" Gina was already working with her translation equipment, trying to decode the alien symbols. Her eyes grew wide as the first words appeared on her tablet screen. "These are not just random files, they are records. Personal records. Names, dates, locations." "What kind of records?" Hana asked, though something deep in her stomach already knew the answer. Would not be good. "Death records," Gina said quietly. "These are memorial stones. Each crystal contains the final messages of people who died." The team worked in silence for the next hour, carefully extracting data from crystal after crystal. Slowly, a terrible story began to emerge. The people who built this place called themselves the Ethani. They had lived on 17 different worlds scattered across this part of the galaxy. They had been peaceful, focused on art and learning and raising their families. Then something called the hegemony had found them. "Commander, you need to see this," Minho said, his voice tight with emotion. He had found a larger crystal near the center of the formation. Inside its clear blue depths, they could see moving images like a three-dimensional movie. The images showed Ithani cities burning, families running for their lives, ships trying to escape as massive warships destroyed everything in their path. But worst of all were the messages. For 43 years, the Ithani had sent desperate calls for help across space. They had begged anyone who might be listening to remember them, to not let their children die forgotten. "Nobody came," Gina said, tears making tracks down her dusty cheeks. "For over 40 years they called for help and nobody answered." Hana stared at the final message, playing over and over in the crystal. An elderly Ithani male, his large eyes filled with sadness but not hatred, spoke directly to whoever might find this place someday. His words, translated by their computer, were simple. "We were here. We loved our families. We tried to live in peace. Please remember that we existed. Please do not let our children's names be lost forever." The archaeological team stood in silence among the memorial crystals as twin moons rose over the horizon. Around them, thousands of crystal spires held the final thoughts of an entire civilization. Every person who had ever lived on 17 worlds was represented here in this lonely place. "How many other species has this hegemony destroyed?" Hana asked. Minho checked his scanner readings. Based on the pattern of data storage and the timestamps, this happened about 200 years ago. But there are references to other attacks, other worlds. This was not the first time. "And it will not be the last," Gina added grimly. "The data suggests the hegemony is still out there, still moving from system to system." Hana looked up at the stars above this dead moon. Somewhere out there, the same force that had killed every Ithani man, woman, and child was probably destroying another peaceful world right now. Another species was probably sending out desperate calls for help that would go unanswered. She made a decision that would change everything. We are going to answer them, she said firmly. Maybe we are too late to save the Athani, but we are not too late to make sure they are remembered. And we are not too late to make sure this never happens again without someone fighting back. Her team looked at her with surprise and hope. Pack everything carefully, Hana ordered. Every crystal, every data file, every single name. We are taking all of it back to Earth. The Athani asked someone to remember them. Today that someone is us. As their shuttle prepared to leave the crystal moon, Hana took one last look at the memorial field. We hear you, she whispered to the silent towers. We will remember. Dr. Taehyun Choi had not left his laboratory for 3 days. Empty coffee cups covered his desk, and his eyes were red from staring at computer screens. The Athani data files were spread across multiple monitors, each one showing a different piece of the terrible puzzle he was putting together. Taehyun, you need to sleep, said his assistant Minji, bringing him another cup of coffee. You have been working non-stop since the archaeological team returned from the crystal moon. I cannot sleep, Taehyun replied, pointing at the screen. Not until I understand what we are dealing with. Look at this pattern. The Athani were not the first. On his main screen, he had created a timeline going back 3,000 years. Red dots marked the locations where civilizations had disappeared without explanation. For centuries, scientists had assumed these were natural disasters, or civil wars. But the Athani records told a different story. Each red dot followed the same pattern. First, a peaceful species would lose contact with their outer colonies. Then their trade routes would be cut off. Finally, all communication would stop forever. The pattern was so precise it looked like a mathematical formula. The hegemony has been doing this for 3 millennia, Taehyun said, his voice barely above a whisper. They are not random attackers, they are systematic killers. He pulled up another screen showing star maps. Look at how they move. They choose species that are isolated, peaceful, not part of any large alliance. They study them for years before attacking. They learn everything about their culture, their technology, their weaknesses. Minji leaned closer to look at the data. How many species have they destroyed? 47 that we know of. But I think there are more. Much more. Taehyun highlighted several empty regions of space on the map. These areas should have civilizations based on the age of the stars and planets. But they are completely empty. No radio signals, no space, traffic, nothing. The laboratory door opened and Director Hyejin Nam walked in. She was the head of Earth's Xenoarchaeological Research Division, a small woman with sharp eyes who never wasted words. Taehyun, I need your report for the Global Council meeting tomorrow. How bad is it? Taehyun turned to face her, and she could see the fear in his tired eyes. Director, humanity is next. We are directly in their expansion path. Based on their historical pattern, they have probably been watching us for decades already. Director Nam sat down heavily in a chair. How long do we have? 5 years, maybe less. They always attack when a species reaches a certain level of space technology. We just launched our 3rd interstellar colony ship last month. According to their pattern, that makes us a target. The room fell silent except for the humming of computers. Finally, Director Nam asked the question they were all thinking. What do we do? Start building weapons? Prepare for war? Taehyun shook his head. That is exactly what 47 other species tried to do. They all lost. The hegemony is too big, too powerful. We cannot beat them with ships and weapons. Then what do you suggest? Taehyun turned back to his computer and pulled up a different file. This one showed communication records from across the galaxy. The hegemony's greatest weapon is not their technology. It is loneliness. They make each species think they are fighting alone. They destroy them one by one, never allowing anyone to work together. He highlighted several distant star systems on the map. But look at this. There are survivor groups out there, refugees who escaped when their worlds were destroyed, small fleets hiding in remote areas. They have been running and hiding for decades, maybe centuries. You want to contact them? Minji asked. More than that. I want to unite them. But not for war. Taehyun's voice grew stronger as his idea took shape. The hegemony destroys cultures, erases history, makes civilizations disappear as if they never existed. But what if we could prove that the dead are not forgotten? Director Nam looked confused. I do not understand. The Athani spent their last 43 years begging someone to remember them. What if we showed the galaxy that someone finally heard them? What if we proved that their children's names are not lost forever? Taehyun brought up images from the crystal moon. We have detailed records of Athani culture, their art, their music, their stories. We can share this with other survivor groups, show them that death does not mean complete erasure. But how does that help us fight the hegemony? Because fear is the hegemony's real power. They make species believe that resistance is hopeless, that death means nothing, that love cannot survive destruction. But if we can prove that memory is stronger than death, that love can cross the void between stars. Taehyun paused, searching for the right words. The hegemony has spent 3,000 years teaching the galaxy that caring about others makes you weak. I think it is time to prove them wrong. Director Nam stared at the star maps for a long moment. This is not a military strategy, Taehyun. This is something else entirely. Yes, he agreed. This is about hope. And hope, Director, is the one thing the hegemony has never learned to destroy. The next morning, Director Nam would present Taehyun's plan to the Global Council. Humanity would not prepare for war. Instead, they would prepare to heal a galaxy's broken heart. Captain Soyeon Kim gripped the sides of her command chair as warning lights flashed across the bridge of the eternal memory. Through the main viewing screen, she could see dozens of alien warships surrounding her small diplomatic vessel. Their weapons were powered and ready to fire. Captain, they are demanding we leave immediately or they will destroy us, reported Lieutenant Jae-hyun at the communications station. His voice was steady, but Soyeon could see sweat on his forehead. Tell them we come in peace, Soyeon replied calmly. Tell them we bring gifts. The alien fleet belonged to something called the Zephyrian Confederacy. According to Earth's intelligence, it was not really a government at all. It was a collection of refugee ships that had been running and hiding for over 200 years. Survivors from dozens of different species, all united by one terrible experience. They had watched the hegemony destroy their homeworlds. Captain, their leader wants to speak with you directly, Jae-hyun announced. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of an alien ship. The creature looking back at them was unlike anything in Earth's databases. Its skin was pale blue and covered with intricate tattoos that seemed to move and shift. Its eyes were large and completely black, showing no emotion. I am War Leader Keth of the Zephyrian Confederacy, the alien said in heavily accented English. You are humans from the world called Earth. We know about your species. You are young and foolish and will be dead within 5 years. War Leader Keth, I am Captain Soyeon Kim. We know about the hegemony. We know what they did to your people. Keth's tattoos shifted to darker colors. You know nothing. Your species has never watched children burn while their parents beg for mercy. You have never seen a 1,000-year-old library turn to ash in minutes. You come here with one small ship and think you understand war. Soyeon took a deep breath. This was the moment that would determine if humanity's plan could succeed, or if they would die alone like so many others. You are right, War Leader. We have never experienced those horrors, but we have found something that belongs to you. She nodded to Jae-hyun, who began transmitting the Athani memory files. These records came from a moon in the Kepler 442 system. A species called the Athani left them before the hegemony killed them all. The transmission took several minutes to complete. Soyeon watched Keth's face as the alien leader reviewed the data. Slowly, his black eyes grew wider. The moving tattoos on his skin began to glow with soft light. This is impossible, Keth whispered. These are melody cultural patterns. The melody were our sister species. They died 300 years ago when the hegemony burned the Kelrath system. How do you have their art forms? The Athani preserved them, Soyeon explained. Before they died, they collected everything they could about other species the hegemony had destroyed. They wanted someone, someday to remember that these civilizations had existed. More alien ships appeared on the communication channel. Soyan could see representatives from dozens of different species, all staring at the data Earth was sharing. A crystalline being with a voice like singing bells spoke first. "These are Nexari songs," it said, its voice filled with wonder. "The final compositions from our destroyed homeworld. We thought they were lost forever." A reptilian creature with scarred skin pointed at the screen with a clawed hand. "That symbol there. That is from the Thalen colonies. My grandparents died on Thalen Prime. I never thought I would see their writing again." One by one, species after species found pieces of their lost history in the Ethani archives. Cultural artifacts, family records, even children's stories that had been saved in crystal memory before entire worlds were destroyed. An elderly alien female appeared on the screen. Her species looked almost human except for silver hair that moved like water and eyes that held deep sadness. She spoke in a voice that reminded Soyan of her own grandmother. "I am Elder Urim of the Korthan survivors. Young humans, why do you share these treasures with us? What do you want in return?" "Nothing," Soyan replied honestly. "We want nothing except to prove that the dead are not forgotten. We want to show the galaxy that love is stronger than destruction." Elder Urim was quiet for a long moment. Around her, Soyan could see other Korthan survivors gathering to look at the screens showing their lost culture. "You ask for nothing, but you offer everything. This is not how war works. This is not how survival works." "Then maybe," Soyan suggested gently, "it is time to try something different." The communication channels buzzed with conversations in dozens of alien languages. Soyan watched as species that had been hiding in fear for centuries began to remember what they had been fighting to preserve. Not just their lives, but their memories, their love for those who had died. "War leader." Keth spoke again, and this time his tattoos were glowing bright gold. "Captain Kim, you humans are either very brave or very stupid." "Probably both," Soyan admitted with a small smile. "Good. The galaxy needs brave stupidity right now." Keth's fierce expression softened slightly. "We accept your gift, and we offer one in return. We will remember Earth when the hegemony comes for you. We will make sure your species is not forgotten." "Actually," Soyan said, "we were hoping you might be willing to do more than just remember us." Elder Urim leaned forward. "What do you propose?" "We propose that we stop running. All of us. Together." Admiral Ji-Hoon Lee stood on the bridge of the human battleship Remembrance and watched 3,000 enemy ships emerge from hyperspace. The hegemony fleet was so massive that it blocked out the stars. Each ship was 10 times larger than anything humanity had ever built. "Sir, they are requesting our surrender," reported Communications Officer Yuna Park. "They say if we give up, now they will make our deaths quick." Ji-Hoon almost smiled. The hegemony had no idea what they were walking into. "Send them our response," he ordered. Instead of surrender terms, humanity began broadcasting on every frequency that reached across the galaxy. The transmission was simple, but powerful. It contained the names of every species the hegemony had ever destroyed. Not just names, but their stories, their art, their final messages to anyone who might remember them. The broadcast started with the Ethani, whose crystal memories had started this whole journey. Then came the melody, the Nexari, the Thalan, and dozens of others. For each species, the transmission shared their most beautiful cultural achievements, lullabies that mothers had sung to their children, love poems written between partners, stories that grandparents had told to help young ones fall asleep. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is moving into attack formation," reported Tactical Officer Minsu Kim. "Continue broadcasting," Ji-Hoon ordered. "Make sure every corner of the galaxy can hear us." On the hegemony command ship, Admiral Kyung-Ho Park watched the human transmission with growing confusion. In 3,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to invasion by sharing poetry and children's songs. "Sir, should we begin the attack?" asked his second-in-command, a Vortak officer whose own species had been conquered 2 centuries ago. Admiral Kyung-ho was about to give the order when alarms began sounding throughout his ship. Emergency lights flashed red as reports came in from across the fleet. "Sir, we have explosions on Deck 7. The Keltar crew has sabotaged their own weapon systems. Engine room reports that the Thrice engineers have shut down power to the main guns. The Nexari crystal singers in communications are broadcasting human messages instead of our orders." Admiral Kyung-ho stared at his tactical display in shock. Green dots representing loyal ships were turning red as crew after crew refused to follow orders. The human broadcast was spreading through his own fleet like a virus, reminding enslaved species of who they had been before the hegemony conquered them. On a hegemony destroyer, Lieutenant Commander Han Song of the conquered Keltar people stood at her weapons console. For 20 years, she had served the hegemony faithfully, believing that her species was better off as slaves than as corpses. But now she was listening to recordings of Keltar children singing traditional songs, preserved by the Ithani before both species died. She remembered her daughter's voice singing those same songs before the hegemony took everything away. "I will not fire on another civilization's children," she announced to her bridge crew. With steady hands, she began shutting down the ship's weapon systems. Similar scenes played out across the massive hegemony fleet. The Dorvac remembered their destroyed art galleries. The Zenith recalled their lost philosophy schools. The Christ heard the voices of their extinct poets reading verses about hope and freedom. "Admiral, we have lost control of 60% of our ships," reported the Vortak officer, his voice shaking. "The crews are not just refusing orders. They are actively helping the humans broadcast to more systems." Admiral Kyung-ho had spent his entire life believing that fear was the strongest force in the universe. The hegemony had conquered the galaxy by making species too afraid to fight back. But watching his own fleet turn against itself, he realized that humanity had discovered something stronger than fear. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human flagship," the communications officer announced. Admiral Ji-hoon Lee appeared on the screen, standing calmly on his bridge while chaos erupted around the hegemony fleet. "Admiral Kyung-ho, I believe your crews have heard enough." "What have you done to my people?" Kyung-ho demanded. "We reminded them that they are people," Ji-hoon replied simply. "For 3,000 years you have taught the galaxy that love makes you weak, that caring about others gets you killed. That memory is useless because the dead cannot help the living." More hegemony ships were broadcasting the memorial messages now. The Keltar crews were sharing stories about their lost families. The Dorvac were transmitting art from their destroyed museums. Species that had forgotten their own names were suddenly remembering who they used to be. "You want to know what you have done wrong all these years?" Ji-hoon continued. "You never understood that. Destroying someone's body is not the same as destroying their spirit. Every species you thought you had erased completely was still alive in the hearts of those who loved them." A massive hegemony dreadnought suddenly changed course and began moving away from Earth. Then another. Within minutes, ships throughout the fleet were breaking formation. Some were heading home to liberate their conquered worlds. Others were simply leaving, unable to participate in creating more orphans among the stars. Admiral Kyung-ho watched his unstoppable armada fall apart in real time. "This is impossible. Fear has always been enough." "Not anymore," Ji-hoon said gently. "Today, the galaxy learned that love is stronger than fear. That memory is more powerful than death, and that no one has to face the darkness alone." The hegemony. Fleets scattered like leaves in a storm, leaving Earth protected not by weapons, but by the simple truth that even giants fall when they forget how to love. Commander Hana Kim stood alone in the empty command center on Earth, watching the last evacuation ships disappear into the black sky. The planet that had been humanity's home for millions of years was now completely silent, except for the humming of computers and the distant rumble of unstable machinery deep underground. "Hana, the final transport is waiting for you," came Captain Min-jae Park's voice through the radio. "You can still make it to the ship if you hurry." Hana looked at the screens around her, showing the status of the memorial project. Thousands of quantum computers were processing the cultural records of every extinct species they had discovered. The Ithani data, the melody songs, the Nixari crystal harmonies, the art and stories and final messages of 47 destroyed. Civilizations were all being prepared for transmission across the galaxy. The upload is only at 70%, Hana replied. Someone needs to stay and make sure it completes. The automated systems can handle it, Minjae insisted. You do not have to die for this. Through the reinforced windows, Hana could see the artificial lights they had installed around the sun. In 6 hours, those lights would trigger a controlled nova that would destroy Earth but send the memorial data racing across space at the speed of light. The quantum transmissions would be impossible to stop or destroy, ensuring that the memories would survive even if humanity did not. Actually, I do have to stay, Hana said quietly. I made a promise on that crystal moon 2 years ago. I told the Ithani that someone would remember them. I cannot break that promise now. On his ship high above Earth, Minjae closed his eyes. He had known Hana for 8 years, ever since they had served together on their first archaeological mission. She was the most stubborn person he had ever met, and also the most loyal. The hegemony fleet regrouped faster than we expected, he said. They will be back within 4 hours. This time they will not listen to any broadcasts. They will just destroy everything. Then we better make sure the transmission works perfectly, Hana replied. She turned back to her screens and began the final checks. The quantum computers held more than just historical records now. During the past year, as humanity had contacted refugee groups across the galaxy, they had collected new stories, love letters between separated families, children's drawings sent from one hidden fleet to another, messages of hope from species that refused to give up. The memorial archives had become something larger than anyone had planned. Instead of just preserving the dead, they were celebrating everyone who chose to keep loving despite the darkness. Upload at 85%, Hana announced. Minjae, are the receiver stations ready? All 47 memorial worlds are prepared. When the transmission begins, refugee fleets across the galaxy will start building permanent colonies, places where the extinct species can be remembered properly. Hana smiled as she watched the progress bar climb higher. Memorial worlds scattered throughout space would become libraries and museums and schools. The Ithani would have crystal gardens where their stories could be shared. The Melody would have music halls where their songs would play forever. Every lost civilization would have a place where they were not just remembered, but celebrated. 90% complete, she reported. Warning alarms suddenly filled the command center. Long-range sensors showed the return of the hegemony fleet moving much faster than expected. Admiral Kyung-ho had brought even more ships this time, and they were not bothering with surrender demands. They were coming to destroy Earth before any more of their enslaved crews could remember who they used to be. Hana, they will be here in 2 hours, not 4, Minjae said urgently. You have to leave now. Upload at 95%, Hana replied calmly. Almost finished. She could see the enemy ships growing larger on her sensors. There would be no dramatic space battle this time. The hegemony had learned from their mistake. They were bringing enough firepower to turn Earth into dust within minutes of arrival. 98%. Hana opened a final communication channel that would reach every human ship, every refugee fleet, every memorial world that would soon be built. This is Commander Hana Kim, speaking from Earth. In a few minutes, our sun will become a beacon that lights up the entire galaxy. The light will carry with it every story, every song, every final message of love that we have collected. The dead will finally have voices that can never be silenced. 99%. Through her window, Hana could see the first hegemony ships entering the solar system. Their weapons were already charging, preparing to destroy everything before the sun could be triggered. 100%. Upload complete. Beginning transmission. Hana placed her hand on the final control switch. Around her, the command center, filled with soft light, as the quantum computers began broadcasting their precious cargo across space and time. For the Ithani, she whispered, and activated the solar trigger. Earth's sun exploded in a brilliant flash that could be seen from 1,000 light-years away. The explosion was not random destruction but a carefully planned transmission system. Quantum data rode the expanding wave of light, carrying the memories of the lost to every corner of the galaxy. On memorial worlds that had not yet been built, species that had not yet been born would someday learn the names of the forgotten. And in that learning, the greatest truth in the universe would be proven once again. Love is stronger than death, memory is more powerful than destruction, and no one who is truly loved is ever really gone.